Rice, wheat, and corn don't just sit quietly in fields waiting to be eaten. They're global travelers, hopping on ships, filling silos, and shaping economies as if they were running their own international business empires. Each has its own trade personality. Rice is the homebody of the trio, most often traded within Asia. It's like that relative who says, "Why go abroad when everything I need is here?" Countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and India ship rice across the region, but most of it never leaves Asia. Rice knows it's indispensable to billions of people, so it doesn't need to hustle on the global stage. It stays close to home, feeding families and attending weddings, while occasionally taking a trip abroad just to remind the world who's boss. Wheat, by contrast, is the globetrotter. It dominates international grain markets like a pop star on a world tour, shipping loaves in the making from Russia to Egypt, Canada to North Africa, Australia to the Middle East. Wheat doesn't just feed people, it shapes politics. A poor wheat harvest can cause bread prices to soar and even spark protests. It's the kind of grain that makes headlines in financial papers, showing up next to graphs and stern analysts in suits. Wheat isn't just food, it's an economic lever, a quiet force in global stability. And yet, in its heart, wheat still thinks of itself as a humble loaf of bread, wondering how on earth it ended up being the Beyoncé of global commodities. Corn, meanwhile, is the flashy exporter from the Americas, the show-off of the grain world. The United States, Brazil, and Argentina pump out so much corn that it feels like they've turned their entire landscapes into one giant corn festival. Corn ships out not only for tortillas and snacks, but also for animal feed, biofuel, and industrial products. It's the Swiss Army knife of grains, with so many uses that it practically begs to be traded in bulk. Corn doesn't just leave home, it explodes across global markets like confetti at a concert, filling cargo ships bound for every corner of the planet. And when it arrives, it's everywhere: sweeteners and sodas, feed for livestock, oil in frying pans. Corn is the extroverted salesman who never stops networking, always finding a new way to sneak into your life. Storage is another hilarious part of their story. Grain silos are like giant banks, except instead of gold bars, they're filled with kernels. Countries build massive storage facilities to keep reserves in case of bad harvests, treating wheat, rice, and corn as if they were precious treasures, which, in a way, they are. Politicians may argue about trade deficits and inflation, but behind the scenes, everyone knows that the real measure of security is how much grain is in storage. It's the edible equivalent of a rainy day fund. What's funny is how these grains, which seem so simple on the plate, end up shaping global economics like seasoned diplomats. Rice stays local but stabilizes entire cultures. Wheat goes international and dictates global food prices, and corn is the overachiever exporting energy, feed, and snacks all at once. Together, they're like a sitcom cast running a global business. Rice is the practical sibling handling domestic affairs, wheat is the charismatic one negotiating overseas deals, and corn is the hyperactive entrepreneur selling everything from energy to popcorn. So the next time you pour rice into a pot, slice bread, or crunch into corn chips, remember that you're not just eating. You're participating in the largest, funniest, and most important business deal in human history. These grains don't just feed the world, they run it, with trade routes as their boardroom and silos as their vaults. And somehow, they manage to keep both our stomachs and our economies full.